Joseph is sold by his brothers as a slave. Chapter 37. Joseph and his brothers. Jacob lived in the land of Canaan, where his father Isaac had lived, and this is the story of his family. When Jacob's son Joseph was 17 years old, he took care of the sheep with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. But he was always telling his father all sorts of bad things about his brothers. Jacob loved Joseph more than he did any of his other sons because Joseph was born after Jacob was very old. Jacob had given Joseph a fine coat to show that he was his favorite son, and so Joseph's brothers hated him and would not be friendly to him. One day, Joseph told his brothers what he had dreamed, and they hated him even more. Joseph said, "Let me tell you about my dream. We were out in the field, tying up bundles of wheat. Suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles gathered around and bowed down to it." His brothers asked, "Do you really think you are going to be king and rule over us?" Now they hated Joseph more than ever because of what he had said about his dream. Joseph later had another dream, and he told his brothers, "Listen to what else I dreamed. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me." When he told his father about this dream, his father became angry and said, "What's that supposed to mean? Are your mother and I and your brothers all going to come and bow down in front of you?" Joseph's brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept wondering about the dream. Joseph is sold and taken to Egypt. One day when Joseph's brothers had taken the sheep to a pasture near Shechem, his father Jacob said to him, "I want you to go to your brothers. They are with the sheep near Shechem." "Yes, sir," Joseph answered. His father said, "Go and find out how your brothers and the sheep are doing. Then come back and let me know." So he sent him from Hebron Valley. Joseph was near Shechem and wandering through the fields when a man asked, "What are you looking for?" Joseph answered, "I'm looking for my brothers who are watching the sheep. Can you tell me where they are?" "They are not here anymore," the man replied. "I overheard them say they were going to Dothan." Joseph left and found his brothers in Dothan, but before he got there, they saw him coming and made plans to kill him. They said to one another, "Look, here comes the hero of those dreams. Let's kill him and throw him into a pit and say that some wild animal ate him. Then we'll see what happens to those dreams." Reuben heard this and tried to protect Joseph from them. "Let's not kill him," he said. "Don't murder him or even harm him. Just throw him into a dry well out here in the desert." Reuben planned to rescue Joseph later and take him back to his father. When Joseph came to his brothers, they pulled off his fine coat and threw him into a dry well. As Joseph's brothers sat down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with all kinds of spices that they were taking to Egypt. So Judah said, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and hide his body? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not harm him. After all, he's our brother." And the others agreed. When the Midianite merchants came by, Joseph's brothers took him out of the well, and for 20 pieces of silver they sold him to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the well and did not find Joseph there, he tore his clothes in sorrow. Then he went back to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone. What am I going to do?" Joseph's brothers killed a goat and dipped Joseph's fine coat in its blood. After this, they took the coat to their father and said, "We found this. Look at it carefully and see if it belongs to your son." Jacob knew it was Joseph's coat and said, "It's my son's coat." Joseph has been torn to pieces and eaten by some wild animal. Jacob mourned for Joseph a long time, and to show his sorrow, he tore his clothes and wore sackcloth. All Jacob's children came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, he said, I will go to my grave, mourning for my son. So Jacob kept on grieving. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold Joseph in Egypt to a man named Potiphar, who was the king's official in charge of the palace guard. Judah and Tamar, chapter 38. About that time, Judah left his brothers in the hill country and went to live near his friend Hira in the town of Adullam. While there, he met the daughter of Shua, a Canaanite man. Judah married her, and they had 3 sons. He named the first one Er. She named the next one Onan. The third one was born when Judah was in Chezib, and she named him Shelah. Later, Judah chose Tamar as a wife for Er, his eldest son. But Er was very evil, and the Lord took his life. So Judah told Onan, it's your duty to marry Tamar and have a child for your brother. Onan knew the child would not be his, and when he had sex with Tamar, he made sure that she would not get pregnant. The Lord wasn't pleased with Onan and took his life too. Judah did not want the same thing to happen to his son Shelah, and he told Tamar, go home to your father and live there as a widow until my son Shelah is grown up. So Tamar went to live with her father. Some years later, Judah's wife died, and he mourned for her. He then went with his friend Hira to the town of Timnah, where his sheep were being sheared. Tamar found out that her father-in-law Judah was going to Timnah to shear his sheep. She also realized that Shelah was now a grown man, but she had not been allowed to marry him. So she decided to dress in something other than her widow's clothes and to cover her face with a veil. After this, she sat outside the town of Enaim on the road to Timnah. When Judah came along, he did not recognize her because of the veil. He thought she was a prostitute and asked her to sleep with him. She asked, what will you give me if I do? One of my young goats. He answered, what will you give me to keep until you send the goat? She asked. What do you want? He asked in return. The ring on that cord around your neck, was her reply. I also want the special walking stick you have with you. He gave them to her. They slept together and she became pregnant. After returning home, Tamar took off the veil and dressed in her widow's clothes again. Judah sent his friend Hira to take a goat to the woman, so he could get back the ring and walking stick. But she wasn't there. Hira asked the people of Enaim, where is the prostitute who sat along the road outside your town? There's never been one here, they answered. Hira went back and told Judah, I couldn't find the woman, and the people of Enaim said no prostitute had ever been there. If you couldn't find her, we'll just let her keep the things I gave her, Judah answered, and we'd better forget about the goat or else we'll look like fools. About 3 months later, someone told Judah, your daughter-in-law Tamar has behaved like a prostitute, and now she's pregnant. Drag her out of town and burn her to death, Judah shouted. As Tamar was being dragged off, she sent someone to tell her father-in-law, the man who gave me this ring, this cord, and this walking stick is the one who got me pregnant. Those are mine, Judah admitted. She's a better person than I am because I broke my promise to let her marry my son Shelah. After this, Judah never slept with her again. Tamar later gave birth to twins. But before either of them was born, one of them stuck a hand out of her womb. The woman who was helping tied a red thread around the baby's hand. and explained, "This one came out first." Straight away his hand went back in, and the other child was born first. The woman then said, "What an opening you've made for yourself." So they named the baby Perez. When the brother with the red thread came out, they named him Zerah. Joseph in Egypt. Chapter 39. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. The Ishmaelites took Joseph to Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, the king's official in charge of the palace guard. So Joseph lived in the home of Potiphar, his Egyptian owner. Soon Potiphar realized that the Lord was helping Joseph to be successful in whatever he did. Potiphar liked Joseph and made him his personal assistant, putting him in charge of his house and all his property. Because of Joseph, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's family and affairs. Potiphar left everything up to Joseph, and with Joseph there, the only decision he had to make was what he wanted to eat. Joseph was well built and handsome, and Potiphar's wife soon noticed him. She asked him to make love to her, but he refused and said, "My master isn't worried about anything in his house because he has placed me in charge of everything he owns. No one in my master's house is more important than I am. The only thing he hasn't given me is you, and that's because you are his wife. I won't sin against God by doing such a terrible thing as this." She kept begging Joseph day after day, but he refused to do what she wanted and even to go near her. One day, Joseph went to Potiphar's house to do his work, and none of the other servants were there. Potiphar's wife grabbed hold of his coat and said, "Make love to me." Joseph ran out of the house, leaving her hanging on to his coat. When this happened, she called in her servants and said, "Look, this Hebrew has come just to make fools of us. He tried to rape me, but I screamed for help, and when he heard me scream, he ran out of the house, leaving his coat with me." Potiphar's wife kept Joseph's coat until her husband came home. Then she said, "That Hebrew slave of yours tried to rape me, but when I screamed for help, he left his coat and ran out of the house." Potiphar became very angry and threw Joseph in the same prison where the king's prisoners were kept. While Joseph was in prison, the Lord helped him and was good to him. He even made the jailer like Joseph so much that he put him in charge of the other prisoners and of everything that was done in the jail. The jailer did not worry about anything because the Lord was with Joseph and made him successful in all that he did.